All right, fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so welcome on in, everybody. We're just getting things all set up. Oh, Ayla's alive.
Hello, I'm
Welcome.
here.
Love it. You're alive. Well, welcome on, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here and for joining in this event. It's the very first of many events that we're going to be having. So be excited, get cozy, have your popcorn or whatever it is that makes you comfy because this event is going to be a banger, hosted by a banger panel right up here. So, with that being said, without further ado, we are going to jump into the swing of things. Oh my god, look at that. My Spotify does not want to engage in this event, but that's okay because my energy is engaging anyway. Anyway, so now jumping right in. So let me just introduce myself and then I'm going to introduce the rest of us here. Um, right? I know, nobody's tech is behaving. It's great. It's fantastic. Right, it is winter. I know. So anyway, my name is Michael. I am the creative director of Elios Games, one of the partner studios here. I do a lot in this industry. I'm not going to go through my entire plethora because if I do, then we're going to be here for the full 2 hours, and I'd rather not do that. So I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. That if you want to know a little bit more about myself, feel free to shoot me a DM. My DMs are always open, or chat with me in the server to know a little bit more about myself. But I'm one of the event coordinators here as well, and I'm very happy to be hosting the first of many events with you guys. And I'm here with my incredible partner, Josh, who also helped to work together with this event. So I'm gonna pass it over to him to introduce himself as well.
Hello, I'm Josh. I am also one of the new event coordinators, and I am one of the co-founders of Salvage Interactive, where I do mostly technical art.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And let's pass it over to Joel next.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Joel. Well, I've been in the industry for about 23-ish years now, in games, and I was last on Minecraft, if you've heard of that game. But I've always been in a communications or communications manager leadership type of role. So, um, I'm I'm really excited to talk about what we have for this topic about growing your Discord and streamers and all that. It's right up my alley. So, and I should backtrack a little bit. I'm head of communications here with Cave Bear Games, helping the community of indies, kind of grow and you know, have an effective communications process. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing about yourself, Joel. It's really incredible to be working with you and having you on this team. And I'm excited to see, the engagement with everybody else in chat. And last but not least, the owner herself, the myth and the her legend, Ayla.
Hi, thank you so much for bearing with me with my tech issues and everyone else's. I will, it appears, be kind of in the background here, try to make sure everything is working because everything is not working today. I appreciate you all being here. This is our first, not a first event ever in the server, but first event with our brand new events team that Michael and Josh are a part of, as well as some of our new team members because we are rapidly expanding the support team to support all of you guys, like Joel with head of communications. Um, we are really excited about this first event, and it should be able to give a voice to all, or as many of you as possible, in a round table session. So feel free to kind of just raise your hand once we get started. If you have something you would like to say, we want to give as many people as possible a chance to chat. Joel, Michael, Josh, and me, and possibly others that may join later, are here as moderators. This is not a lecture, this is a roundtable. We are here to just make sure that the conversation goes smoothly, that is, remains respectful and stays on topic, as well as maybe add some things here and there as some of us may have experienced some areas that we can add to. Thank you, Michael, for taking this on while I figure everything else out.
Yeah, absolutely. No problems at all. Hosting events is a lot of fun. It's part of what I do, so I've no problems doing that as well. There will be another member joining us momentarily. She's just having a little bit of permission difficulties at the moment. But you know, hindsight, it's the winter time and it's 2025. And of course, we cannot end the year without having more issues. But it's fine. We're still going to roll through. So now, jumping right into the swing of things before I get carried away. So this event, just as Joel mentioned earlier, is going to be about streamers, which I am one myself, growing our Discord, which is actually what we're trying to do with Elios Games as well, and also just developing a community. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having some guest speakers joining us momentarily to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of best practices for these three different topics. There might be some filler questions that me and Josh have. We put together a curated list to excuse me, dear Lord, I'm dying. We put together a curated list to kind of help the conversations flow. But if you guys have any questions at all, hopefully the chat is working. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to throw your questions into the chat. Look at that. Perfect timing. She is
I'm here.
here. She is here. She is here. She is here. Perfect timing. So let me just finish this sentence real quick, and then I'm going to pass it over to my community manager, actually. So this is fantastic timing. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions at all, feel free to pipe them in the chat. And I'm looking forward to being able to answer those, to be able to ask the speakers those questions on your behalf. So yeah, without further ado, let me pass it over to Sunny, who is actually my community manager for Elios Games. Go ahead, Sunny.
Hi everyone, I'm Sunny. I'm one of the community managers for Elios Games. We're currently helping set up the Discord and helping members start to feel involved and connected with the, what project we're currently working on. And really excited to be here. This is my first time actually getting a little bit more involved with Cave Bear Games. So thank you very much for letting me have that opportunity. I guess I should go into a little bit more about myself, so you guys don't think I'm a complete stranger. I've been in the community management industry for about 5 years, and I've started working with content creators, indie game studios, and independent game developers. And slowly but surely, I've started working with more and more teams, and really, really excited to be here.
And we are equally as excited to have you here. Thank you so much, Sunny. And also thank you for the incredible work that you've done for my team. It's been absolutely amazing working with you so far. So what we're gonna do, just to kind of get the conversation rolling, I think I'm gonna start by throwing you with a question, just to kind of pick your brain a little bit more. How's that sound? Does everybody like that idea?
Love it.
I
Let's
will
do
take
it.
that as a yes. Love it. All right, so let's do that. Let's do that. Let's dig deeper. Sunny, beware. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so we're gonna start by talking about. This is just a question talking about growing your community. So just a simple one. What are some best practices that you think you'd recommend when it comes to building and growing an online community?
There's certainly a lot of factors to it, and a lot of them is of course, it depends on what project you are connecting the members with. So you want a foundation, clear rules, set boundaries, and you want to set a foundation or a vibe that will help members get very accustomed to and being able to easily adapt or easily communicate with other members and the moderators, and set that foundation for give me just a moment. I'm having a technical difficulty here.
This is now the time for the roundtable has started. Anyone from the audience, the community, is free to raise their hand. We will get you right up. We really want this conversation not to be singled out to the people who are on the screen now. Remember, we are just moderators here to make sure the conversation goes smoothly. It is really all about you guys coming up here, talking with each other. So, if we can get more than one of you in here at a time, we're happy to do that. So at any point, you guys are free to raise your hands. Michael, can we get the question one more time? I want to put it in
Yes,
chat.
absolutely. We can get the question one more time, or 20 times if you like. Um, so the question was, what are some best practices that you recommend when it comes to building and growing an online community?
I think actually I can fill in some of the gaps here too while Sunny is away. Um, I think one thing to consider is that there is no one size fits all, and I think that's an important thing to remember. Your community is going to dictate a lot of the kind of things that you need to do in order to be successful and grow it. So if your community naturally gravitates more towards Reddit, maybe, then you want to help facilitate that. If your community naturally gravitates, and a lot of them now are gravitating more towards Discord, then you want to help facilitate that. It's figuring out, and a good community manager will figure this out, where your community lives and why is it important to that community. So I think that's one of the things. Leverage your community manager, have them do some investigative work and really think about, okay, where is our community living? And then then you figure out the tactics of how do you really evolve that and amp that up. Um, a lot of times you'll find in-game promotions, presuming you have a community manager 100%. Um, but a lot of times you'll find in-game promotions that lead or help guide the community to the places where we want them to be. And I think it's important to keep that in mind that, making as many avenues as possible to the channels that you want your community to go is a good thing. You want it to be kind of, you want to make sure that your community is aware where they can go to connect. Because what we know from building a community is there is increased stickiness to your game, right? And that's what we want. We want people to have a good experience, a sticky experience. And then kind of backtracking a little bit to what Sunny said, you need to have a good, safe, and inclusive environment for your community when they get there. So you actually have to lay the foundational work kind of beforehand and think about, okay, where is our community? And then how do we make those environments safe for our community to be in and inclusive for our community to be in? And then you go out and promote, because if you're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit, you're going to find that you're going to bleed out a lot of your community before you even get a chance to really interact with them, because they're going to see a toxic environment. You're going to see an environment that really isn't conducive to a place where people really want to be and engage, right? So I think those are a lot of things to think about when you're actually community building. Um, yeah, and hopefully Sunny's back and I can hand the mic back over, but um, I feel like I'm just kind of on a pedestal just talking away. But
And
I,
that's totally fine. But I think you're um I think you're perfectly fine. I think you have a great idea. And just to add on before I pass it back over to Sunny, just to add on, I think it's also important to have a clear vision for what you want to build with your community. Because yes, you can have the greatest of communities, but if you don't have a vision or an identity for what you want to build within your community, then it's just a group of people. And we want it to be more than just a group of people, because especially with a community that's of communities that's thriving. For example, like look at the Amir Satbot Games community that's just continuing to build and build and build and build and build, right? Because with Amir Satbot, which I actually had the pleasure of meeting at one of the events, has a clear vision, clear identity for what he's trying to build within his community. And that's so important for whenever you're trying to foster a community, is to always have that vision and that overall goal for what that space is.
yeah, I love that you bring that up, because I think as a studio you start with, what is your mission? What is your mission statement? And everyone buys into that. And then that ties into the vision of what you're trying to do as a community. Because if your mission is to be an inclusive place for, I don't know, all farmers or something, I don't know, then you want to tailor your community to that. So I think there's a lot of
Absolutely.
those kind
I'm
of.
bringing Nick from OBL Studios up here, as well as Odaya from Shabaman Games. Nick has a question, which he can start with, but I would also love for these two partner studios to talk a little bit about their current situations where they're in with their communities. Go for it, Nick.
Take it
Yeah,
away.
so currently myself and creative director are assuming the role of community management for our Discord. And currently we have about 86 members in our Discord, and we're trying to decide when should we try to really put our heads down and bring on a fully dedicated community managers that, I can only get so much out of, reading Victoria Tran's community management book. Like I got a lot out of it, but my passion is more on the production side than the community management side. So
Oh,
just
we love
looking,
production because you're talking to a project manager and producer. Sorry, I had to point that out. Go on.
um, from my experience, um, I always advocate for bringing a community manager in as early as possible because they help shape what your game is and what it can be too. Through the insights that they provide, through the quality of direction that they can provide, with the community, you can really create a really, you know, really good community early and good quality insights for you to develop your game with. So as early as possible, to really develop a proper community and proper game is my recommendation. Now, there's the financial side of it or the compensation side of it that gets a little tricky, and I think you have to feel out like where you are in the development process. And if you are ready to like roll into a beta, like I would say pre-beta would be a great opportunity where you still allow the community manager to help shape some of the decisions through the insights that they can provide, but it's not too early where you're like, oh man, how are we even going to pay this person or compensate this person because we just don't have the funds yet. So that's kind of my take on it.
has anyone here
One of
gone
the
the route
things that
of,
Oh,
I apologize,
Oh,
go ahead.
it's okay. Please, you're allowed to go first. But I wanted to toss in. I've done some consulting work as a community manager in the past, and one of the things that I've recommended to people is that community building is one of these disciplines where the choices that you make at the very beginning have these tremendous knock-on downstream effects that don't necessarily become visible for 6, 12, 18 months. And then because you can't just redesign a community the way you could redesign like a platform structure. You wind up in a situation where you can't necessarily make changes to the decisions that were made early on. So a lot of times I've been brought in to help out with a community where a team is saying like, hey, this isn't in the place that we wanted it to be, but and I'm left in the position of saying like, unfortunately, the cause of this is the decisions that you made a year before you hired me, and at this point now, like I can try and do damage control, but if you wanted to had to prevent this from happening in the first place, it's way too late, especially because people don't necessarily just you can't a community is made up of the people that are involved, so you can't necessarily just say like, oh, okay, we're going to change the way we do things around here because like it's opt-in. People have the ability and the tendency to say like, well, no, that's not, we've been doing things this way for a year, we like it this way, we don't necessarily want to change. You make those changes and you lose people, and then other people, you have to find new people to replace them. One of the things I recommend in cases like this, especially because, as Joel says, the financial requirements can be very onerous to get somebody, especially to get somebody experienced very early in the process. But it is often valuable to get a consultation or something like that from an experienced community manager early on to make sure that you are building in a direction that you're going to be happy with in a year.
I will say, Malgain, I actually don't know how to say your username. Casey is our brand new community manager here for to support you guys. They just came on
Yeah, I
the
should
job like
update
2
that.
days ago, so they were not even, required to be here. I'm thankful that they're here to talk a little bit. Um, but I also wanted to go back to Odea, and I think I said your name wrong the first time. Odea, am I saying it right correctly now? Perfect. I
Yeah.
want to make sure you have a chance to talk about where you're at with your studio and community.
Yes, yes. So, like I said before, I'm on a similar boat with Nick, and the community that I'm trying to build through my Discord server is like a studio Discord. So first is like a bunch of testers in there as well as other community members. However, kind of very difficult to get new members who like are interested in the game that we're working on. So usually I post long form videos on YouTube and shorts and try to do it that way. Some people, maybe like one, two people might pop in, but most of the time they don't really pop in and that kind of thing. So it's kind of get difficult trying to figure out like how to get them in there. I haven't used Reddit yet. I started using Reddit recently, so hopefully that would be a little bit better. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm very new at this. It's my first time actually having a Discord server in a community, so and newfound studio as well. So
No, I think I think that's a cool scenario to be in because that's actually the same thing for my studio as well. And that's actually hence why I brought Sunny on as our community manager. So actually, Sunny, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about the stuff that you're actively doing for our studio as well, because this is a good way for us to share the experience that we've gained throughout building our studio too. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry about the technical difficulty. So like for our server, for Elios Games, we wanted to, of course, start with our foundation. What's our identity for the community members and like how would we want to get them involved? Starting events, making sure that it's a safe, exclusive community. And let's see. Give me just a moment.
No problem.
And for our community, we have for our community, a lot of we're still in the development stages. So we are still like brainstorming about like, how can we, get people involved and slowly talk about the project that we're doing and bringing on people who might be interested and might be interested in the type of community that we want to develop or involve people with. Like I said, we're still in the development stages of this, so we're still thinking of ways to involve people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like some of the stuff that we're actually going to be doing just to kind of touch in and I'll get other people to jump in as well so that I'm not talking too much because otherwise I'll talk for years. So another thing that we're actually doing is we're doing a mix of long and short form content because the good thing that people gravitate towards is not just trailers, but they want to know about the people that's behind it. Because yeah, you have a bunch of different great, fantastic videos, but okay, I want to know what's the process? How did you get yourself accustomed to making that style of shader? How did you get yourself accustomed to making this main character? How did you get yourself accustomed to bringing on these incredible talented developers? So something that we've done for us as well is not just a mix of long and short form content, but it's also something that we're starting to do, which is a series of developer logs, which is something that will streamline everything that we've done throughout each month of our process. So that's something that will essentially allow your community to follow along your journey because that is what your community should be is looking forward to, following along the journey. What story are you trying to tell with your game? Because that is what community management is about. It's storytelling. You're literally telling your community, come join my presence, come join my village, come join my whatever you want to call your community, and be part of my story and write a narrative for yourself too. So it's about how you can organize your content, which is something that Sunny and I are also trying to put together too. How you can organize your content in a way that tells every step of your story so that people follow that journey and can connect with it as well.
I'd love to hear more about some of the other studios in the program here in the audience about where you guys are at with your community. What if you have found, as Joel says, where they are at, whether that's TikTok, Reddit, Discord. What kind of also like Odea, what kind of game are you making? Where do you think your audience is?
I'm currently making. Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay, cool. I'm currently making a 2D action roguelike hack and slash type of game. It's called Ginger's Wrath, where you play as an evil gingerbread man who plans to enact his wrath against the hero's crew called the Grimm's crew. In case the Grimm or Grimm Brothers Grimm story. So you'll see bosses like Snow White, Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, all of them. So that's what I'm working on right now. So people who it has a little bit of like a ARPG feature, but it's not like the main thing. So I guess my audience be around those like roguelike, hack and slash, a little bit of ARPG, a little bit of the funniness, comedy of it.
That is
Where do you
actually
think?
so sick.
I remember speaking with him about this when he joined, and I was very interested in any type of Brothers Grimm stuff. Where do you think your audience is?
I'm not 100% sure. I think they're in like, like mostly Reddit because there's a lot of subreddits for like roguelites and ARPG, and you have the indie dev stuff too, specifically. But besides that, I'm not entirely sure. I know some people are on TikTok, some people are on YouTube.
Fantastic.
Can,
Have you
can I make
tried?
a small
Oh, yeah,
suggestion for this
go
kind
for
of
it.
thing? This is a
Please.
small scale one. But I think for stuff like this, a great move is just like find existing communities for similar games. Or find people who play like small streamers or something like that, like who play these other games, and ask them like, do you if there are communities that they hang out in, even if it's not like the trick of that is that lots of people use that directly as a sales tactic. They're just sort of like, oh, I'm coming in pretending that I'm curious about you and your experience, but actually I'm trying to sell you my game. Don't do that.
Yeah.
It shows a mile away. But if you come in and you're just sort of like, no, I actually have a question. Like, I want to know what you're like, where people who are interested in this kind of thing hang out, because I'm trying to learn from you and trying to figure out how to make things better. And like, at that point, if they want to ask you about your project, great. But like, but just directly asking people, especially at the scale that when you have the chance, is a really underutilized tactic in terms of like community building. Is just finding people and just talking to them as genuinely as you can.
It's definitely a great idea. Maybe I should type it out so I can remember.
I think
Yeah.
what I would say is well, there's two important things of note. One would, as with all games like ARPGs and things like that, your engagement rate is going to be a bit lower than some deeper games like an RPG. So keep that in mind and don't get discouraged if you don't have a super huge community. It's genre based a lot of the time. So just think about that as you build out your games, and every community is going to be a bit different. Second one, really, as we distill down like what the purpose of like a Discord or whatever channel you're developing is engagement, and what are you providing that's different for the community. You got to give the community purpose to why they want to be there. So usually it's like an exclusive access to developers, right? Like they have access to you, and that's really important, right? They have access to, maybe it's release notes that are a little bit early. Hey, this is what we're planning. Maybe it's beta testing, like, hey, we're doing this in the beta. If you find X amount of bugs, we'll give you, a little thing in our Discord. Those are things that provide purpose to your community, but also the people who are visiting, and that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Go for it, Odea.
No, I was just saying thanks. 'Cause that was
No,
some good information.
We have
Absolutely.
some comments in the chat. Sorry, Michael. So make sure you're looking at those. But I also want to make sure that we have time to talk about the two other topics we are hoping to talk about alongside growing your community, which is streamers and content creators, how to kind of start bringing them into your community building, as well as personal branding. If you have more questions about community, like growing your community on Discord and other socials, again, please feel free to come up at any time, or you can put them in the chat. But I do know when we go into streamers and content creators, we have at least 2 streamers that I'm currently aware of in the chat right now. HCP, who unfortunately can't come up onto the stage, but I think they are able to type in chat. And then Tanner, who is my own lead designer on Plantasia, and he's doing his own thing now. And I would love for him to speak on streamers, hopefully at some point, Tanner. But we can move on to that a little bit. I would love, if possible, Joel and Casey to talk a little bit about streamers before we dive in and give more of the stage to the partner studios.
I'll hand it to Casey
We'll
first,
go
and
back to
then
the
I'll.
audience.
On the spot, man. I think honestly, in terms of like, partnering with content creators and all that sort of thing, like, I mean, the most obvious move is obviously, you find there are like content creators whose whole business is in providing discoverability for projects, and there are lots of projects that sort of fit it. Like one of my favorite content creators is Manly Badass Hero. I don't know if anybody else is a follower of his around here, but his whole business is just like, I'm doing, indie horror titles, and I have like a new like video playthrough coming out for a different indie horror title every couple of days. And now I'm part of like Discord servers for game publishers who are part of the same sort of ecosystem, and you see people in there constantly going to sort of like, oh man, how can we attract like this particular indie creator's attention? But I think the biggest thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with that is you win or succeed based on the size of the pond that you're trying to be a fish in. Like, you want to pick a pond in which you can be a big fish, if that makes sense. Like, I have a close friend who became a content creator for Elite Dangerous. And a key in, and he told me that like they're doing really well right now, and the channel is doing great. But when he was trying to get his sort of like 0 to 100, that early first stage, like finding his audience, he told me that his whole approach had been, he wanted his video to be the most interesting thing on the Elite Dangerous subreddit on Wednesdays. That was his mission. Like, and when you shrink down the size of the target you're aiming for, and say, I just want to nail this small thing really, really, really well, then you succeed with this small group and you become a big fish in a small pond, and then you can start to expand from there. But it's much, much better to aim for like really connecting with a small group of people before you try and aim any higher.
I agree. Just before we continue, actually, there is a question in a chat that I would like to get addressed, just to ask everybody here. So, not to put everybody in the spot, but this is just something I want to make sure that we answer. And it's a question from Nick. So Sunny, Ayla, or anybody here, please feel free to chime in and answer this question. But it's, how would you like to be approached by studios as a content creator?
I'm gonna single out Tanner here. I want him to come up and answer this question if he can. I've already DM'd him to tell him I'm gonna do this, so hopefully,
All right. Well,
then.
come on up on stage.
I've invited him. Hi, Tanner. Tanner, I would love for you to answer this question as well as give a little bit of a brief history on how you are a content creator. If you
Sure,
are.
yeah, that's totally fine. Hello everyone. My name is Tanner. I am the lead designer for Cave Bear. I also was a professional player in a few different games. I create content, educational content for YouTube and Twitch, and I also recently founded my own studio too, and we were working on a competitive MOBA. The question was, how would I like to be approached as a content creator by studios?
Yes.
Well, aside from the business email and the about section, I think like an organic conversation in the chat is usually pretty good. It depends on also like the size of the creator and how many people are actively watching them, because it's a bit difficult to have a one-on-one if the chat's kind of flying. But if you're targeting more of like the small to mid-size, like you don't have to worry about like flooding the chat too much, but just going back and forth.
Thank you,
My mic
Tanner.
is
Feel free to
muted.
stay on and just chat with us if you would like.
Yeah, of course.
No, I think that's a great way to look at it, and also point taken so that I can take onto that as a streamer myself. So that's also super duper helpful advice. Thank you so much. Now, I do have to hop off because I have to cover my coworker at work. But I'm gonna be passing it over to Josh to help moderate. So thank you guys all so much for being here. I look forward to seeing the fabulous recording afterwards when this is all done. And if you guys have any other questions or want to connect with me afterwards, I'm more than happy to connect with any of you guys. But I just want to say take care. And if I don't see you guys, have a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year and have a happy holidays. Let's start strong in 2026. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Michael. Thank you, Michael. I'm bringing
Bye.
Alito up. He
Hi.
is a co-founder of one of our studios as well. Hi, Alito. How are you?
Hi, how are you? How are you, everybody? Let me just turn my camera on. I don't know how. I'm not the techie one here. My
There's
techie had to leave.
a camera
Here we
icon
go.
in the bottom middle of
Here
the
we
screen if you move your mouse.
Here we go. Here we go.
Lovely to see you,
Thank you
Alito.
very much, guys. Thank you, Isla. I'm still waiting for your comments on how you're doing in New Zealand. Did you get to meet Kate?
I am meeting
Edwards?
her in a couple of days.
Send her a big kiss from my side. Great girl.
Sure.
Let me quick tell you about my story and to see whether you guys can guide me into this, okay? Isla knows my story. I don't know how many of you already heard it last time. My son started with video games when he was 2 years old. By the time he was 6 and my wife tried to take him out of the games and into other things, his answer was, "This is what I want to do. I don't care about anything else. This is what I want to do." So she said, if you want to do this, you better learn how to build them, how to make them, and not just how to consume them, because you have to live with this. You have to work with this. So he knew very early on he wanted to be a game developer. I am a movie frustrated producer, by the way. I ended up going to engineering school. So this was my way to get into the entertainment business. I'm not a gamer. I'm more of a movie addict, but I always knew that I was going to back my son up, and we were going to have a son and pup shop as a studio. The thing is that we live in Peru, and here the gaming community is very small. There's a lot of there's a lack of a lot of pieces to have a successful studio. Stephen went to school in RIT. I don't know if you're familiar with in North New York, in Rochester, New York. He's very knowledgeable. He's building games now, but we need. I'm like he's the gamer, the programmer, the developer, the designer, and I'm the network guy. That's my strength. That's what I have in common with Isla. I'm very good at networking. I'm very bad at actually the technical stuff that I need to network in Discord. I'm still learning. And something that I understood from day one when I went to GDC this year is that I need to build community. It's very, very, very clear to me. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody in Peru that can help me with this. Nobody. I've looked everywhere. Nobody understands how important this community thing is. Everybody's thinking about his small games and their small. Most of the teams here are friends that work somewhere else and they're just building games for fun. There are very little studios, and most of them are working for hire. We are doing our own IPs. The strength of Unbreakable as a company, as a studio, is Steven's IP game development designing abilities and my sales part. But we need to have a community manager, somebody who can guide us, bring this to the audiences. I understand that, but technically I'm zero at this, and so is Steven. Steven is not a kind of guy that will do network at all. He is into his building the computer. Building the games.
Networking isn't for
So
everyone. I understand that.
I know.
But I also think community is different than networking. There are obviously similarities and parallels. But I am not Casey is, a community manager and he hates networking, and I am a networker and I don't hate community management, but I don't consider myself extremely good at it. So I think obviously events like this are just the start of how we as the partner program want to support you guys. We have a lot of plans in the future, and we're going to hopefully build more resources to support you. Have you tried recruiting from this Discord for a community manager?
The problem is I don't know how to do it. And Steven, I don't think does either. We're not. You remember you sent us a tutorial and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that I feel that we need a designer to design an advertisement because we don't know how to attract people out of our game. Our game is too early to show something. We now have the mechanics. We have the game is really cool, and now we just started with the art. So we will have some art within the next couple of weeks. But
that's actually a super good question. That's something I struggled with Plantasia as well. In the beginning, I was like, we don't have anything to show. How are we supposed to, put this stuff on social media? Do any of you here have, Joel or Casey or anyone else have ideas on how to do that before
Tanner,
you have any content?
You raised your hand first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I think building a community or like getting a community for a game has definitely changed over the years. Now I would say you either have a community, like an existing community, and you build the game for them, or you grow the community like alongside the development of the game. I especially like as a smaller studio or like trying to get your first product out, I think it is going to be it's not going to be as productive to wait until you're done before you start putting stuff out. Like you want that validation from the audience as early as possible. So even if you don't have anything to show, just talking about it with people and seeing if they're like, oh yeah, I would play that, or that sounds interesting. Like where can I, like what you really want to have happen is for people to go, where can I learn more about this? Or can I play this now? Like those are all like good signs that like people are actually interested in what you're working on. And the earlier you do that, the better, in my opinion.
I need a person to do that. I don't have anybody in my team to do that, to follow that up. It's just like
so. As Ayla, as Ayla mentioned as well, there's probably people in this Discord who would be willing to help with that. It's also, and I don't know how big your team size is, if it's just you and your son, but it is totally.
We're 5 people right now, and we're recruiting 2 more artists, 1 illustrator and 1 animator. But none of them. I need an American-based community manager.
A couple of things. One is that if what you're struggling with is how to write a job description to put in our opportunities channel to find the right community manager, let me know. We can work on that. That is also part of our plans in the future. We just brought on a head of people, Steve Poeska, who is going to help me with some recruiting resources for you guys to better recruit both here and outside of here. But also, I was at GDC and I was listening to a talk from the community manager of, and I'm not going to remember the name of the game or the studio at the moment because I'm terrible at that. The roguelike or the Souls-like where you're a crab in the ocean. Anyone know what I'm talking about? The crab. Joel knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was like it went really Aggro Crab. Yes, thank you, Aggro Crab. They were talking about how while yes, they have a community manager, obviously, and of course you do need one. That community manager worked very, very closely with everyone else on the team. Another Crab's treasure from Aggro Crab. Yes, they had fantastic rapport with all of the developers on the team so that they were in all of the chats. They were fully up to date with everything that was happening in the whole studio. So that was they were able to look at what is happening in these different channels, in these different teams, and be able to pull content from that just using their community manager brain. But also because they were fully involved in these teams' chats, the team themselves got to know the community manager, got to know the community from the community manager, and was able to start involving themselves in content creation and community management. Part of the reason why Another Crab's treasure is so interesting and chaotic is because the dev team was so closely in tuned with the community itself through this community manager. And we're able to kind of see what the community wanted and be like, oh, I have the skills to add a gun into the game, which they did do. And all these other cool stuff because they saw what the community was doing through this community manager. So community manager wants to be as involved, ideally should be as involved as possible.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a community manager that can guide us in the right direction. And because the thing is that you have to be on top of the designers, the animators, and or the developer to give you the information to put it together. I need somebody to put together the team as a community manager.
Important question for you.
Yeah.
What is your target audience for your game?
The game, let me rephrase the game. The game is an anime platform. It's about a girl that is late for school, that fell asleep, and she has to be there in 2 minutes. So she has to run to school and has like a lot of paddles and on the way, like trucks coming to her, and she's getting superpowers because she doesn't get killed, but she gets laid back and slowed down. She has 2 minutes to get to school. So
a platform runner.
Yes,
so it's like a platform runner.
Yeah.
Have you identified where your target audience is? Is it like males 13 to 20 in the US? Is it global? Is it, LATAM? Because those are important questions to help guide you in your quest for a community manager. Because if you're targeting mainly like a Spanish-speaking audience, for instance, it might not make sense to get someone in the US. You might want to have someone who's more, closer in your time zone, in your region, to understand cultural differences.
The type of game that we're making, it's not targeted for the Japanese audience only, because anime is a worldwide. It's like going to eat Chinese. When you go to eat Chinese, you don't target the Chinese people. If you have a Chinese restaurant, it's a worldwide type of food. So anime, you have audience all over the place. Who is going to be your biggest audience? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that.
Yes. Something I learned, Alito, as I was developing Plantasia, is something I still struggle with. I'm struggling with it with my next game. It's not something I'm very good at, but I have learned the extreme importance of figuring out who your audience is. Yes, ideally, everyone in the world will want and be able to play your game, but you need to figure out a very, very specific audience that you are building for. And it doesn't really sound like you have that. It's not, this is an entire another discussion altogether. But yes, like Joel said, you need to find an age group, a gender preference, a location preference, a language preference, hobby preferences, all these types of things you want. And I'm sure Joel can talk about how to find an audience better than I can, because again, I'm not good at it. But yes, a very specific niche that you are building this for. And then maybe ideally, once you have successfully achieved appealing to that audience, then maybe you can think about going bigger and more global and more worldly.
It's kind of the same. It's the mirror image of the same, like promotional thing with streamers and content creators that we were talking about earlier. That was basically like you want to find yourself a niche that you can own first, and then once you own it, then you grow. But like the first step to success is figuring out what niche you want to try and own first.
For sure, we're going to the Asian market at first. Actually, what we're recruiting right now are Peruvian of Japanese descent for the art. The artists are the art director and the illustrator and animators are Japanese descendants and understand the culture more than a Japanese descendant. The art director have lived in Japan for many years. So we are, and the target is about 17 to 25, 30 years old. The thing is that Steven is the one that knows, and he had to leave. He had a doctor's appointment. Maybe Alex. I see that Alex is here. Fassi, do you have seen the game with Steven? Can you tell the target audience?
He's been telling us a little bit about the game already in the chats. He's more than welcome to come up. I think audience, I want to keep us on a little bit of I want to keep us on track here. Audience is, like I said, a whole nother discussion and something that we can certainly help you with. I can talk with Casey and Joel and see if we can send you some resources to learn a little bit more about audience and maybe some people to talk to. Cav in the chat put a link that you should look at for the Quantic Foundry for gamer types to talk a little bit more about what types of gamers you might be looking at, but that's not entirely audience. It's a little bit different. So we can kind of figure out some resources, Lito, and I can kind of follow up with you later on this because you are asking very good questions, but they're not exactly questions for this specific topic of this event. And I want to make sure that we answer everyone's questions when it comes to building a community. I also definitely want to help you when it comes to writing that job description to post here to find a community manager for you because you certainly need one. So we can just talk a little bit later. I will send you those things. Fuzzy, thank you for your help in chat. And I wish Steven was here because he could tell us a little bit more about the game.
For a doctor's appointment. Sorry, he was.
Yeah, no worries.
He had to leave.
Yeah, Alito, we'll have Joel and myself follow up with you after to talk a little bit more about audience because I think that's where you need to start, and then we can talk a little bit more about community management after that. Okay. Thank you so much, Alito. I super appreciate all of your everything you say all the time. And yes, I am meeting with Kate in a couple of days, so I'll tell you how that goes later. I want to start a little bit of a conversation before we get off the topic of streamers and into personal branding. I want to talk a little bit more about a question that we have, which is how should you vet streamers according to their audience and their follower count? And are there any other factors to consider when choosing content creators to contact? Let me just put this in chat, actually, because that was a bit of a mouthful.
Well, not to harp on the point, but I think the first, you want to ask yourself, you want to be asking yourself about your own sort of striking distance, what your own theoretical reach is, because there are people who are going into a game project creating something that they're like, well, I'm aiming to take on League of Legends, and there are people who are going into a creative project going I'm creating a silly little mobile game that I want people to try out for the weekend, and those projects are equally valid, but the types of streamers you're going to want to target are going to be different. And again, I think the way that you frame it is just sort of what's the largest, streamer community that I feel like I could make a really big splash in. And it's okay to say that should be really, really small. You should aim smaller first because the successes will build on each other.
I think the first question I have when I read that question is what is the intent there of interacting with like a streamer and or their audience, right? It's like it's also kind of like, what do you want to get out of it? Like, one, do you want like the streamer to play your game and then like have them like play it in front of their audience and see whether their audience is engaged? That's going to be kind of difficult because for a lot of streamers, unless they are variety streamers, most of their audience is only going to watch them on a specific game or a type of game. Like, for example, like if a streamer is known for FPSs, their audience is pretty much only going to watch them for FPSs. 80 to 90% of them are going to drop off if they go and switch genres or switch games. The other thing is in terms of like interacting with the actual chatters, I mean, you could do stuff like ask, like, say like, okay, like I'm working on a game, and like see if people are interested, and instead of like responding to them in the chat, like DM them. So again, you're not like just flooding the chat, which some streamers may not be super fond of unless you know them and like they're okay with it.
A lot of thoughts here. And I think when it comes to streaming and like how do you vet your streamers, like I think it's important to also think about your brand and what you're trying to accomplish as well. Case in point, like if you're an educational, family-friendly brand, are you going to want that person who just cusses all the time on their stream? Probably not. You don't want that kind of streamer representing your brand. So there is some vetting that you need to do and a little bit of consideration that you need to make. Are you okay with that? I mean, like, think about the controversies that have come up with some streamers out there. There's a lot. You need to be aware of that. But I think, it's tricky because as you're working to grow, you're also maybe less inclined to like be as strict on who you include. So it really depends. It depends on your threshold for tolerance on somebody who might swear a lot, and if you're a family-friendly game title. It depends on your tolerance to, just a lot of things. I think, Tanner, your point about the genre is super spot on. You can't, if you have like a platformer, go to like an MMO person or a FPS person and expect them to stream it, have a large stream, and be successful. That just isn't how it works because that's not how their viewership is set up. So, yeah, you need to like do your due diligence too, as you identify streamers and make sure that they're kind of on point as a variety streamer or whomever to make sure that they're kind of fitting the mold for what you're asking them to stream. Because then you're not just setting yourself up for failure, you're actually setting them up for failure too. Because, they're going to lose viewership and that's not good for them. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think one of the easiest ways to get someone to like promote your game or like play it in front of their audience is like you want to find content creators who are looking for that in particular. Meaning, like, there are content creators who like variety content creators who play a lot of games on YouTube, like show off, all these indie games, and like reaching out to them because it's something they're already looking for. It's a much higher success rate than like trying to convince people to deviate maybe from their, because like especially if they're larger streamers, they usually have some type of plan or schedule that they stick to anyway. So like trying to convince them to change that when that's not like maybe their initial like or their current like plan is just going to be more difficult.
I have a question because our community is unfunded or self-funded indies. These are indies that have little to no budget. So how would we approach streamers? What kind of streamers should we approach when we are trying to get them to do it for free?
First
A
of all,
lot
don't
of
be a jerk.
yeah, I mean, I would make this is an assumption, but I would make the assumption that a lot of there's plenty of examples of like indie games that kind of blow up because a content creator covered them, and I would assume that oftentimes those games are also from like unfunded studios or small ones, right? And they just happen to get lucky with like a content creator deciding to play their game. You can kind of like change. I don't know if this is the best term to use here, like the status quo, where it's like you reach out first. But I'm like, I would say just be like transparent with the message. Say like, hey, like I am the founder of a small studio. We are unfunded, but we're looking for a variety of content creators who may be interested in playing our game. If this is something that is interesting to you, I'm happy to tell you more about it, send you a link, like whatever. I think that would be a pretty good approach, or at least how I do it.
I know we
think
did this a little bit for sorry, Casey, I'll let you go in a second. We did this a little bit for Plantasia, not with streamers, but with like TikTok creators who did like cozy game compilations. Most of them replied back and was like, here are my rates. And we're like, we don't have any money. But we did get a few, at the very least, a few who were like, oh yeah, like I'll put this in my September compilation or whatever. And so, you know, for us, in my experience, you know, we sent out as large of a net as we could, and we did get a few fish. But we also got a lot more who were trying to charge us, which is totally valid and reasonable, but not something we were able to accommodate.
I would say like
Yeah,
it's a oh sorry, good.
I mean, I was going to say the same. I think just that, like, if you are in a position where the creators you need to work with are ones that you are not in a position to be able to pay, which most of us are, like, but if you're in that position, then I think the only tactic that makes sense is to try and like widen the net and then shrink the target, the size of the audience of the content creator you're trying to find, because you're trying to find people who are who, you know, would be impressed if somebody offered them a free game key. But a lot of the time that means very, very small content creators, and you need to make sure that you're targeting a large number of them to get a good return.
I think going into the more organic, I mean, I think that's a good reason why we're seeing these friend slop games, is because they are using their game to attract the content creators rather than you know, trying to get the content creators to be interested in their game. The other way around, or whatever I just said made sense. We see these games who are using the mechanics and the and I'm gonna forget the word, like, shoot, Sea of Thieves does it, where it's like organic interaction or something between the players in the games, and uses that to create clippable moments in games which streamers would like. And not to say you
Virality?
have to create a friend slot. No, not proximity chat, something else. But you don't have to make your game to appeal just to streamers for the hope that it gets picked up by one or two big ones and, you know, your game blows up. But that's certainly a strategy that we are seeing. But yeah, how can you use the mechanics that you do have in your game to maybe appeal to these streamers in some way?
I would say this, and this is like a very like direct like comment. Just focus on fun, right? Make sure your game is fun first. Nobody wants to play a game that isn't fun, engaging, and good, and the rest will fall into place. I think as long as you focus on making a great game that is fun, that is engaging, that people will enjoy, streamers will enjoy it. Now, I think sometimes we over-index and cater directly to streamers, and that's okay. That's a strategy. But there's been a lot of games in the past. Like I remember Stardew Valley, right? Like that came out of nowhere, and it was just a fun game. It was what we needed, right? And you know, I would say they focused on fun. So I would start with that.
Something that I think is like it's not necessarily for everybody, but it's a question that everybody should ask themselves at this stage in the process, because, you know, streamers and content creators are a key part of this, but you need to take a firm look at your game and figure out and ask yourself if if there are streamers that stream your kind of game that are seeing the kind of success that you want, you know, because there are some games that like aren't fun to watch on stream, and like they're great fun to play, but like I love to watch YouTube videos about Dwarf Fortress, but watching a streamer do it would be really boring. Like, because it needs to be like filtered through like a layer of like meta communications in order to even get across like what's going on in the game enough for it to make sense for me to follow narratively. Like, and that's just one example, but like if there are like a lot of popular like there's lots of popular streamers who play competitive FPS games. If you're making a competitive FPS game, your challenge is differentiating yourself from the huge budget AAA titles, not, you know, finding streamers who might be interested. But if, you know, you're building like this like super crunchy, like spreadsheet heavy strategy game, then I don't know. No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't reach out to content creators, but maybe it's not streaming that you start with. Maybe you start with like, you know, YouTube creators or something like that who might take a different approach. You know, you sort of calibrate your expectations based on, you know, like the first thing to do, I think, is to find the streamers that are out there doing the things that, like, you know, it's not about like finding content creators and convincing them to play your game. It's about finding the content creators who would want to play the game you're making in the first place.
Okay, that was a lot about streamers. Thank you, everybody. Streamers are hard. Hopefully one day a streamer will play a game I make. That would be super cool. We're already over an hour. I don't want to keep people too much longer. But I do want to talk a little bit about personal branding. So I'm going to kind of just throw out some questions. We can kind of pick up wherever we feel. So when we talk about personal branding, we need to stay consistent across our different channels of Reddit, Discord, wherever. How do we do that? How do we build relationships to expand our personal brand? How do we measure the success of personal branding? How do we decide what type of content is best to support our personal brand? Let's just talk about personal branding, or, you know, studio branding. This is something that I'm hoping to try to do a little bit more. I haven't done it yet, so I would love to also hear these points.
Is there a specific starting point that you think would be good to?
You go for it, Tanner. Whatever you feel is best.
I didn't have anything in particular in mind. That's why I was asking. But I would say for let's see what comes to mind for this personal branding. I would say the most important thing for myself when I was starting out was coming up with reasons as to why people would want to watch me. Like what, like the type of content like I'm creating. Like, I mean, people should have a reason to watch it. Otherwise, they're just gonna watch someone else, right? So like for me, it's like, okay, I'm very good at the games I play. I'm easy to talk to, and like I'm teaching people stuff, and I don't know, I'm nice or something like that. I don't know, whatever.
Are you going to be using your streaming brand in your studio brand, or to support your studio
Is this
brand?
like sorry, is this still on the
Yeah,
topic of like when you say personal brand is like studio brand?
studio brand. Yeah.
Studio brand? I would say it's pretty similar, but I probably a bit more product focused instead. So like if you're coming out with like a game, or your studio is like coming out with a series of games, it's like, okay, like what are you doing better than other people you're competing with? Otherwise, like it's really hard to pull people away from like their homes, I guess, like their home games, home studios they like a lot.
I can give perspective on like studio branding and like personal branding. I may not be like the best at. I'm not a streamer, but studio branding I can tell you plenty about. Um, you need to kind of start with your brand guidelines, right? Like get a mission statement, get your, you know, values together, get it all in like a PDF, you know, document, and then, you know, follow those guidelines. Create your brand imagery, right? Get your hex code colors so everything is consistent, right? Those are really like small things, but really important things as you develop your brand identity. Um, and really, it goes back to your mission, your vision, and your values. And as long as you write out your mission, you know, your mission statement, you have your values statement, which should tie in to your mission, and from that you can tie in like your imaging, your visual branding guidelines, and from that you can then start to engage on the platforms in a meaningful way, like as you develop your Twitter identity or X, whatever they're calling it these days. If you want to be there, of course. It's you want to just have consistency across all of your platforms. So iconography, right? Think about that. If you go into like your Discord and you see like Cave Bear Games, for instance, you want to see that same icon, across all the different channels that you're present in, just to have consistency. It's all about consistency, and it's like that repetition of seeing the same thing, across those channels. They know it's an official source. You're a trusted brand at that point. You're a trusted, you know, channel. So it's about building up that brand equity, with the community that you're building. So consistency, having the hex codes for all your colors. So like, if there's any opportunity to change colors or anything like that, make it consistent. Don't like be willy-nilly. Get like your fonts together too. That's another big one. Like if you're, I don't know, Comic Sans everywhere, stay Comic Sans everywhere. If you're that kind of like crazy person. Nobody really does that. But it was just an example. Just be consistent. It's all about being consistent across every channel.
I think the challenge here is that like there's so much like just stuff out there. Like there's every person, like your audience is just so overwhelmed with stuff that they could be watching or could be paying attention to or could be doing. And you need to make it as easy as possible for them to make the decision, not even to leaving aside convincing them to pay that attention to you. You need to make it as easy as possible for them to make the decision that you're someone they want to pay attention to. And which means like consistently showing up whenever you show up as like recognizably yourself and being recognizable as like what you are. Like if somebody can tell immediately by looking at your branding, by looking at your page, that like, oh, it's that guy I was watching play that game last week, or it's that studio that was working on that thing I saw on YouTube the other day. Like if you can do that in like a split second, then your branding is in a good place, because it's about making it very clear who you are, what you're doing, and whether the audience that's looking at you is like, you want people not just to be able to like decide to look at you immediately. You also want them to be able to decide immediately, oh, that's not for me. Because like if it's not, then okay, fine, worry about them later. Find the people who want to find you first, and worry about everybody else later.
We were very lucky with the development of Plantasia. Sorry, Josh. Give me 2 seconds. We were very lucky for the development of Plantasia to have several people that contributed very heavily, and were not me, to the branding of Cave Bear Games. And that was our artist, Aiden, who created the Cave Bear Games logo that you see today. And that logo is what I believe is one of the main factors that we went viral on LinkedIn and were able to start building this community, because of the, quality and professionalism of the logo that he created, but also our UI UX designer, Stephanie, who decided those hex codes, those fonts for us, so that our game and our brand were on a same message across everything. And that pretty much, the logo is kind of the extent of the studio branding that I have so far. But it has worked very well. People know who we are because our logo has literally not changed, except for in the very beginning it was only white, and now it's green and whitish. That is the only thing that has changed, that has and has allowed us to get our kind of name recognition across LinkedIn, across Discord, and hopefully into other socials that we will hopefully go into soon. But I've also done it as well on my own personal brand. just in my writing style, which seems like a weird thing to be part of a brand, but it is. My personal brand on LinkedIn is my writing style, and I also try not to change my profile picture too often. But my writing style, people can understand who I am based on how I write in the very specific way that I write. And one of the kind of networking tips that I say and that I do is people are able to get to know who I am very well as long as they are, just seeing my posts, because they start following me, they see post after post after post, and then I meet them in person 6 months down the line and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know you. I know what you're about because I read your stuff and it tells me who you are, and I'm the same in here as I am in LinkedIn." Weird little branding stuff that I have done so far, which isn't even a lot, but it has benefited me. Josh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something kind of related. Also interested in it in my own studio. But like, how do you measure the success of branding, whether it be studio branding, personal branding? Because, there's always if you go viral or if you get absolutely no eyes, you can obviously tell this is successful or this is not successful. But what if it's like in the middle? How do you know if there's something that you should change?
This may be a silly one, but it's like, are you able to sell merch with your branding on it?
Casey, do you want to do a little bit of your rant?
Oh man, I had two rants simultaneously going in the chat at that point.
Whatever, either one.
Well, like I still remember like talking to a bunch of people early on who were when I was in the beginning of my games career, trying to network with people in conventions and such, and I kept running into people who had I knew Darius Kazemi, who had a brand like a business card that he would hand out that had like a cartoon version of his own face on it, and then the back of the business card, instead of a job title, it just said, in quotes, "a generally useful guy to know," and he would just hand that out to people, and it's just like, yeah, all right, I'll take that. um the rant I was thinking about was like, Hannah mentioned that thing about finding about different like if only we had a recommendation platform that would like recommend games to people who might like them. And it's like, this is such a frustrating problem to me because it's one of those like I don't know, like it's one of those problems that would be solved completely if we could just extract the profit motive out of it. And it would just, and like as soon as the people who were making it were not trying to figure out how to make back their venture capital money, we would have something amazing. And like as it is, people will use YouTube for recommendations to help them find things they want. They'll use Spotify to help them find music that they want, or they'll use TikTok to get informed about new things that are coming out, or they'll watch the Game Awards, or they'll wait for trailers to come out or whatever it is. And those are the tools that we have, and every one of those tools is corrupted by this like financial motive, because people are able to say like, well, I could recommend games that I genuinely think are good for the audience I'm recommending them for, but also there's this game studio that's offering to write me a check for $500,000 if I just bump their game up the ranking by 10 points. And it's like, that's not much, and I could really use that money. And then suddenly, a month later, your whole system is useless and everybody has to find something else, because there's this constant financial pressure to recommend games based on something other than whether or not you think your audience will like them. And all of the the content that you see on YouTube, even when you're engaging with content creators and such, the content is going to be like colored by the fact that like Civi11 is one of my favorite YouTubers. I love watching his stuff. He's got stuff on new and retro FPSs that's coming out all the time. But there will be like stuff where his grumpiness will come out in his own videos, his own frustration about the fact that he will try and do videos about games that he really thinks are good and that he really thinks the people who are watching his channel will like. But YouTube has him pigeonholed as like a Doom retro FPS YouTuber, so he needs to make a Doom video every couple of months because otherwise, like, he runs out of money. And he talks about this in his Doom videos. It's just like, time for more Doom juice for the algorithm. I guess we're just doing this again, and it's I don't want to get I don't have a solution, so that's why I didn't want to just sort of dive into the whole rant. But it's a constant pressure, and if my anti-capitalism is coming out, but like it's definitely a situation where it's just like, man, if we could just get into a situation where the people who were building these projects and products, like, were building them without having to worry about how they were going to pay their bills using the product they were building, things would go a lot different, and the products we'd have would be better. And I'm frustrated with that. The end. That's my rant.
I get you. My anti-capitalism can come out a bit as well. I mean, that's how I want to run this program. Is in that.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I signed up. I wanted to be part of like the people who were doing it because they loved it,
Yeah.
and like get away from the people who are like asking me as a community manager, can you use your community management skills to make people like this product that is harmful and exploitative to them? And I was like, oh God, no! But I need to feed my family. Damn.
Yeah. Everyone in the partner program is here because they're passionate about what they're doing about games. And that's really what brings this whole community together. It's the same for everyone on the partner team as well, the team supporting you guys. So, we've seen in chat that there's several little projects possibly happening, to help with this issue. We would love to talk to them if you have contacts at those little groups, little platforms. We would love to chat with them. We want to support and help not just the partner studios, but we want to support anyone who has the same kind of values as we do of supporting each other instead of competing against each other, at creating resources to help, people like us, unfunded indies, or people just trying to do games because for the love of the game, right? So yeah, I know we're coming up on an hour and a half here. I think I want to kind of start ending it down. I appreciate everyone for chatting, for attending. This was recorded. I hope Josh's recording is better than mine, because mine is actually probably unusable. So I apologize for that. Thank you, Josh. We will have a recording of this, it appears, so we can kind of go back on this. But, this is the type of stuff I want you guys to continue talking about and continue sharing about in the Partner Studios chat. I know we have some really great, talented experts here on the panel up here with us, which is great. And they are resources to you now as well. And they are relatively new to the partner team. Everyone is pretty relatively new to the partner team, so you'll be seeing more and more of them as time goes on. This is also our first event with a partner with an events team, so we will be seeing more and more events where we have several in planning, and they will continue to improve in every single way possible. If you have feedback about the events, if you have event ideas, if you have questions you would like us to have an event to answer, please let us know. We really crave and desire and need your feedback in order for stuff like this to work, but we will continue working regardless. So thank you everyone for being here. Hopefully we learned some stuff. Hopefully we will be able to take, yes, Alito, I will get you in 2 seconds. I see you. We hope to be able to take events like this and use the learnings and links and resources that have come out of it to create our own resources so that we can continue to support you guys outside of just a live event. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. If you read my latest email, we have a lot of stuff going on. But yes, thank you for reading it. Alito, send us off. What can we hear from you? I don't think I can hear him. Can anyone else hear him?
Yeah, I think you're
No, I
muted.
can't. He's muted right now. I think it's his actual mic, because he's not.
Yeah, I think it's your
muted
actual
in
mic,
Discord.
Alito, because you're not muted on Discord.
You could also type it in the chat if necessary.
Yeah, you can also type in chat. Nope. If anything, Alito, we're going to talk soon anyway, so we can chat. No worries. Put it in chat too. But thank you everyone for being here. I know we probably didn't answer all of your questions, time being the thing that it is, but I appreciate you asking them. And again, if we did not answer your question, maybe put it in the Partner Studios chat, see if any of the other studios have something to say. But yeah, we're going to be doing more of this, so hopefully get used to maybe participating yourself in the next time, but we'll also make it easier for you to participate. Again, everything is going to improve as we go on. But yes, thank you for being here, everybody. And that's it.
Thank you.
We're done.
Thank you, everyone.
As well.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Bye. Thanks, Tanner.
Yeah.
Bye.